Guess who's back? And I got a super surprise for Hoof Beast.
Oh boy.
There it is.
Oh, iPhone. Awesome.
That's right. I have discovered the power of the horns. Uh, so it just so happens that on an iPhone, if you are on a broadcast like this, you too can have the power of the horns. By the way, what the fuck's going on, everybody? Normally, Tracks of the Damned is not on Thursday, but as my post said earlier, it is most definitely Beer 30, quadruple shot o'clock, or what I like to call Thirsty Thursday. Oh shit, I must have fucked him up with that too.
That was really good too.
Oh my goodness, I've missed so much here. We have had quite the audience already. What is up? Sugarhorn, otherwise known as Rebecca. Star Knight is in the house. That's right. Cody the Defiler. Yabelka, what's going on? And of course, Beelzebub's Mouse Bomb. Arcane is in the house. Good evening, good evening. That's right. You know what? She's dying. She goes, LOL, Will Ferrell. For sure. I had to throw that in there because it just cracked me up so much. I figured everybody would dig that. But welcome to the show, everybody. This edition of Tracks of the Damned is extra special because we're talking about a band that I personally have loved since I was very young. And actually, it's kind of strange, but one of the first extreme black metal bands that I had ever gotten into, prior to the Originators and a lot of other bands that came after that. But they were kind of my little gateway into black metal. And of course, I am talking about the awesome Cradle of Filth. So we're going to be just kind of discussing their career and some of the albums as well. And, if there's anybody out there in the Morgrot universe that has not heard of Cradle of Filth, this is a great introduction for you and, maybe get you into wanting to check them out. But before we get into this madness, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break to our brothers at Villain Arts Tattoo. That shit out. And that's right. Villain Arts Tattoos, the biggest, baddest tattoo convention in the entire U.S. They come to your city, your town, your state. You might find the big bad devil daddy himself and a whole hell of a lot of some of the country's best tattoo artists. And you know what to do. Check them out. All right. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right into it. So apparently, while we were at commercial, Arcane is starting to learn everyone's own names from the goddamn program. He says, laughing my ass off, Mousebong, nice name change. Gotta love it. Absolutely, Mousebong says, Hope y'all addicts are doing well tonight. That's right. We're gonna have a hell of a good show tonight because we're talking about an awesome, awesome fucking goth slash black metal band. However you categorize these guys, you cannot deny that when they hit the scene in the early '90s, they were fresh, something new, and apparently a vocalist. That of course I'm going to let Adversara Khan there kind of key you into the genius of one Danny Filth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Danny does something with his vocals that I haven't heard anybody else do. He has this super high falsetto that he rips. I cannot do it. I think I would really harm myself if I did, so I don't really try to do it.
My nuts would be in my asshole.
But you know, his vocals can be super nasty, and I actually prefer his old vocals, like from the first 2 albums especially, because those are kind of like in the range of kind of Marduk's Panzerfaust, Panzer Division style. Like they're really nasty, really garbled, or even like Marduk's latest album as well. A lot of people will say the first album that they created, which is There We Are, The Principle of Evil Made Flesh. This is my number one. This is my favorite album that they made. A lot of people like to say, well, this is death metal. It's really kind of blackened death metal, but more on the blackened side. But it really does have a lot of kind of 1990s death metal guitar kind of tremolo picking, not the second wave of black metal tremolo picking, although it does show up every now and then. But Danny's vocals are nasty. They're garbled. They're flipping much more brutal, in my opinion, for this album than all the rest. You can tell, like, they aren't quite as sophisticated as the others, but the keyboards come through prevalently as they do with every single Cradle album. And they are in this one. They were pioneering with keyboards more than anybody else had heard. Maybe they were inspired by Nocturnus a little bit, like in the 1988 through 91. I got to see Nocturnus with Napalm Death and Godflesh back then. It was an outstanding show.
That's a stacked bill.
I wish I still had that shirt. It was really good.
No doubt.
Yeah, that's pretty much my intro. Like, they get a lot more refined. Once they hit Cruelty and the Beast, they become a lot more refined, and they get more refined throughout. They do experiment a little bit more here and there. We get ballads coming in, and to me, they're really tasty ballads too. Beautiful female voices in them.
Absolutely. Arcane says, I also feel like Danny is the only vocalist that shrieks both octaves like he does at times. You hit the nail on the donkey right there, man. Or it gives the illusion of it in a way. This is actually a legit thing, everybody out there in Morgoth universe. Some people have the ability to hit multiple octaves at the same time. It's something that you're just kind of born with. You just happen to have that ability. I mean, I'm jealous of anybody that can do it. And that's when he pulls that mic away from his face, like almost, it seems like almost a half a foot to a foot from his face. And he just lets that thing out, and you're hearing just all the crispy, like fucking, I always call it a maniacal witch voice when he shrieks out, because it gives me the chills. Let's see. Mousebong says, I have a pretty high range, but there's no way in hell I could ever reach his falsetto. And the fact that 30 years later, he's still doing it. Let's see. Cody says he discovered Cradle of Filth on Resident Evil soundtrack. And Mousebong says, I think I discovered them on AOL. I love it. Let's see here. Hey, what's up there, Kyler? Kyler says, hello, my friends. A few things. Facebook, fuck you for not working and not sending me a notification. Second thing, I'm down a guitar and need a new bridge. And third, happy Thunder Thighs Thursday. We love you, brother. We appreciate you.
Yeah, I just so everybody knows, I wasn't able to post. I have had very, very, very little sleep. I had to spend the night in the fucking airport in Charlotte last night.
We know how much
and some fucking bastard while I was sleeping pickpocketed my fucking iPhone. So that's why I'm here. Oh, I know. I'm so fucking mad. But I've got somebody in Charlotte right now. I harass the fucker all day long because he's dumb for thinking that he can steal an iPhone and that he can hack into it. Every time he went to T-Mobile, I called the T-Mobile, and then I pushed this button where you can make the phone make all kinds of sounds.
Right.
And they kept sending him off. And on the third one, he finally gave up. And I wrote, please return this stolen phone to the Charlotte airport, lost and found. The fucker took it, but he put it probably in a garbage can or in a fucking bush. So I have friends driving up there right now to secure my fucking phone.
Oh,
fuck that motherfucker. If I ever fucking find him, I'm going to do something for him. I got a conjuration coming for that fuck.
You know, and a half, maybe two. Definitely. Arcane says, and we can't forget that Danny also has a very, very good lows. His lows are very good. And the fact that he can switch it on, switch it off, and go just up and down in one fucking verse is sick to me. Which I have a video that we'll watch in a little bit here that really kind of demonstrates that genius. And as a matter of fact, Mousebong says it's called polyphonic overtone singing. So that is the technical term. So yeah, I mean he is a beast. And one of the things that I remember when I first started telling my friends that I actually, found Cradle of Filth, I really love what they're doing. And they're like, well, you know what the story is about Danny, right? I'm like, oh, really? There's a story. Well, they say that the reason he can hit those highs is because he takes female hormone and has to lactate once a month and get his boobs drained. I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Maybe he should be Beelzebub's.
Right? Well, I mean, we found out that is false. That is not, in fact, how he does what he does. Kyler says, what the fuck? That motherfucker, I'm with you, Hoof Beast. Exactly.
Conjuration of destruction fucking coming.
Yeah, whopper size.
Yeah, I'm a little tired right now, but he's gonna get some of it to fucking night, and tomorrow that motherfucker is gonna get fucking worse. He or she, whoever it fucking was. I bet you what they do is they sit at the fucking airport and they wait for people to go to sleep on a fucking chair, and they look for any little thing. I could have sworn I had that thing zipped up in my backpack because I was worried about that shit. Oh well.
So definitely make sure that everybody fires a middle finger gun salute to the person that stole Hoof Beast's phone, because that's you tell him, Phil. You tell him. Those, we're talking about those first few albums. I don't know about y'all. I'm sure Hoof Beast probably feels this too. That it's so much rawer sounding on those first few records, and I think that's why they were so magical, because the guitars were crunchy. They did have a little bit of that early recording, type early black metal sound. And Danny's voice was not super overproduced or anything like that. and the drums were real clear. That's one of the things I really enjoyed. And I mean, having somebody like Nick Barker to this day is by far one of my most favorite, most influential extreme metal drummers on myself. Uh, I mean, they had a star-studded, lineup. Now, of course, they had a different keyboardist at the time, and of course, the female lead singer gets added a little bit later. But man, those first couple records, they were just super powerful. So, all right, what? Mousebong says cookies to make people lactate. What? Where did that come from? Cody, did you come up with this? Oh, here we go. This is why she said that. He says, men can't lactate. There's no hole in the male nipples. I researched because I was going to give someone I worked with cookies to make people lactate. What in the utter fuck? Literally. No, the reason people thought that this was true is because both of Danny's nipples are pierced. They have piercing. So they were thinking it was just shooting out. I don't know. That would be very unfortunate. But, once we get past those first couple of records, things start to change. And one of the things we notice is it's getting darker. They're starting to add more costume kind of wear. Because if you look at some of the earliest photos of Cradle, Danny was just going up there in a long sleeve, black metal band t-shirt or long sleeve shirt and jeans. He had a few studs and things, but, it wasn't, they had the makeup going, obviously. They had the corpse paint going. But everyone was pretty, I guess, average, you could say. But, man, by the time we got to... let me see if I can find it. Oops. There we go. Once we get to this album, this is the one that catapulted them, I guess you could say, into mainstream light. Because, those of us that were still watching Headbangers Ball at that time, we were able to find out about them. You know what I mean? Suddenly, MTV is playing them. So it was kind of like one of those unsaid things that back in the early 90s into mid 90s and almost to the 2000s, they were still showing metal videos, and all of a sudden, here they are, and it's like, these guys are fucking amazing, right? So it was a concept record. And one of the things that I love most about this band is the fact that Danny and most of the guys in the band are very big into horror. They absolutely love horror. They love dark history, especially, there's a wealth of dark history over there in Europe. It's like pick your poison, right? So what did they choose? Who did they choose there at Saracon?
Hell yeah. I agree with everything you've said. You've described it really well. They become more symphonic. Like you can't get away from throwing out the symphonic word, even though Dimmu Borgir kind of took it and kind of ran with it as well. But Dimmu was also more closer to traditional black metal,
right,
with their kind of guitar riffage, whereas Cradle doesn't quite do that so much. If you guys are going to go through the first album, which is The Principle of Evil, the whole album is really good. I must say that I can do without the really long, heavy keyboard stuff in between every other song sometimes. I can do without that. That bores me. I don't care who it is. Like, give me like 30 seconds or a minute of it, maybe at the front of the album and at the end of the album. I'm okay with that. I get tired of that. It's for me, it feels like it's lacking something, like it needs another instrument in there. Like it's cool, but it needs something else that it's supporting. It totally sounds like it's supporting something. And I do have a little bit of an issue. But just a couple of songs like Summer Dying Fast off of the first album, which is The Principle of Evil, really fucking good. I mean, but they're all really good. And you're gonna, like, I really appreciate them for already bringing in these fucking symphonic elements in there.
So now we figured out where the lactating cookies came from. She says it was the Munchkins lactation cookies I had when I had our son. And of course, Mouse Bong was dying after that. Arcane says Cruelty and the Beast was probably one of their absolute best. I'm sure there are many vinyls that get slap out of that record. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's because it was the most dynamic. The production value was even different. You could definitely tell that they had found a sound as a band that they wanted because, again, those first couple records, little disjointed, but they were bangers. So when we get to Cruelty, things are on a much grander scale, and especially having the female vocalist very prevalent in a lot of the songs, due to the fact that the subject matter is covering Elizabeth Bathory or the Countess of Blood. So, of course, you're going to have that in it a lot more. But you hear a lot of vocal effects too, a lot of layering. This is something they didn't really do those first few albums. Not a whole lot of layers, but they had gotten the drums just right to where they were still very prevalent in the mix. You could hear everything really well. My gripe on Cruelty and the Beast is that the guitars should have been more up versus the keys.
I agree. I think they were probably really trying to separate themselves from everybody else, and that's probably why they did that. I think they took a big risk, and it overall worked because this is a band, like you mentioned goth before. They really do bring in different people to their shows. I've been to their shows. There's a lot more women there because they have the women vocalists. They have some pretty damn good ballads in there as well. And like we'll talk about those as we go on. But the first album overall, to me, I would say, I don't know that I would say that it's so disjointed, but they're kind of learning their way. They're finding their identity over the first two. The first one was coming out of black metal, kind of like how Dark Throne did with their album. And that album is a really, really, really good black metal. Death metal album. And then when Dusk and Her Embrace came out, this is embracing more of the black metal. And his vocals are still more raw and they're heavier, kind of, to me, in the style of Marduk.
No, I agree with that 1,010%. It's, going into like you said, this concept record was definitely a gamble. But the crazy part about it is it captured everybody. Not just your black metal listeners, but people that were into Typo Negative, death metal, kind of all the way around. And you can't deny because their look got better and better also. Now they're coming out in these like elaborate outfits, elaborate paint. There's a lot of blood. And I remember reading an interview many months ago that Danny had given about that, where he's like, I really like to incorporate horror into what we do, which is where now they're looking a bit more grotesque. And then, of course, the female lead, dressing in a nice corset and very medieval style kind of looking. They were trying to give you a visual and a kick-ass album, and I don't think there's any other band on the planet that could have pulled that shit off.
Yep, they're totally unique. To me, they totally have their own sound. There definitely is a they do sound like black metal, but like to me, it's like maybe 1/4 black metal. The rest is their own. Like nobody sounds like them to me.
Absolutely. Arcane says, we're talking about a band I know a lot about, which is awesome. You know, it's not just for us guys. It's, you know, some people don't really know them too much. Some people just see them in a Hot Topic somewhere and go, oh, that's a badass shirt, and not even realize that it's a fucking band, you know. Let's see here. Cody says, I agree. Keyboards are good for a few seconds as an accent, but can be overdone. There's moments in the storyline, and this is where, like you said, this big chance came in. I think, and I've read this also, that Dan is a big fan of like orchestra type music. So for him, having those little interludes was supposed to create a eeriness feeling of very much like a death kind of thing, because it's not pretty keys, at least not all the time. And when you know, any of the ballad numbers that are on that record, they sound pretty, but man, they're dark as fuck. If you really go through those lyrics, there's some pretty sick shit there. I mean, they're talking about, you know, virgins getting bloodletted for the fact that the countess could live forever young, and of course we know that all came down.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Awesome. Mousebong says, Arcane, no such thing as too much when having a nerd out session. Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that at all. Yep, that's true, Kyler. Kyler says, my favorite thing to put on at times is when they do the live orchestra. They're like one of the only black metal bands that I think that's appropriate, because it fits with what they're doing. So I didn't think that they were trying to be all, look at us, we're, you know, so, you know, classy and this and that. They weren't pulling a Metallica on us. They were pulling, this is what it would sound like with a real string orchestra, not keys. Because let's face it, how many keyboardists did they go through?
I can't keep up with it.
Nobody can, man. It was almost the same thing with the damn female vocalists too. They switched out singers there quite a bit also. But I get it. You know, some people, they know it's their time to move on. Shit happens. Because there's one lady that I know Avasaricon will definitely talk about. And that's the one that was there the longest. And it was like a shock when she decided to leave the band. So we'll get to that. Let's see here. Arcane says, yes, I have said for a long time COF is their own genre and have evolved into something so original. They started at the root of black metal and still have influences from that. Oh yeah, they always let you know they can still bring that ferocity. It's just not super prevalent, and I think that's cool because it's like they took it a different direction, and people like it and they like it, and there's no one else really trying to do that, unless you maybe think of Godflesh Apocalypse. They're very symphonic metal or symphonic black metal. You definitely wouldn't like them at the Saracon.
Yeah,
they are keyboard driven.
Yeah, Flesh God Apocalypse. Also, Septic Flesh gets into that a bit as well from Greece. Really good visuals with them as well. Really kind of horror and fucking monstrous and really dark.
Yeah, but they just don't have what I think Cradle brings to the table. I mean, you have a lot of satanic overtones. You have a lot of like lore, vampires, sorcerers, I mean, they talk about all kinds of crazy shit. Lots of ghosts, creatures. It's it's kind of like a mixed bag with them, which is why it never gets old. And we're going to talk about the another one here that is become one of my personal favorites, and this was inspired by the movie Nightbreed. And I never knew that. And once I learned that, I really kind of melded into this record a lot more because I got it, like I understood it. Midian, I believe, is the one that really kind of pushed them over the mark, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. So a lot of people say this is the one that has the biggest character with the keyboards in it, but it's still really heavy. Like the guitar tone kind of improved. It's not real thin on that album.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. It's in like my top 6 probably out of their albums.
And that was my biggest complaint on Cruelty. And you know me, man. Cruelty and the Beast was in my rotation, practicing 6 hours a day of drumming. And my big bitch about it was I couldn't hear the guitars louder or crunchier in the music. So by this record, it's like holy shit balls, unholy shit balls of that. We can really hear it now. It's more in the forefront. So.
Yep. Yeah. So you want to talk about the ballads and talk about Nymphetamine and maybe The Death of Love from, I think that is the Godspeed the Devil's Thunder album.
I wonder if I grabbed that one. Let me see. Well, there's the nymph amphetamine.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can discuss the other one first though.
Yeah, so Nymphetamine is one that most people like to go to, and Nymphetamine is not my favorite of their ballads.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like The Death of Love. I like the chugging that it has in it, and it's probably one of their softest songs they've ever made. But I fucking love that album because when they get into it, it really gets super heavy when it does get heavy, and it's more in a low end kind of death metal way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's somewhat, I know this is probably blasphemous to say, but I mean, it's kind of a page out of King Diamond's book where, he's doing a ballady type song, but when the heavy comes out, it just totally takes on a bombastic character and just becomes fucking heavier than shit. That's for sure. Arcane says, does Heartbreak and Seance count as a ballad from Cradle of Filth or possibly Blackest Magic in practice?
I would say so. They slow it down. And like really, who has used the women with the clean singing women with the extreme vocals of a man like they have? They always do.
Mean, it's unheard of, but they did it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the crazy factor is this. When you first start to play some of those songs, if you haven't heard them before, anybody out there in Morgrot Universe, it works. Like hearing both vocals together, sometimes in unison, it is something else. It really is interesting. Let's see here. Star Knight says, Cody, so sorry. I just love your name. The Death of Love plays on repeat in my head a lot, especially the chugging. I mean, who doesn't like a good chug? You know what I mean?
It's really, really good. And I would say if you have somebody who maybe likes the lighter side of metal and they're just kind of getting into metal a little bit, that's a great song to get them in because Danny he brings all of his tools to the table, but he really gets low and gnarly with his growls in this one too. It's a real dynamic song.
Yeah, and his gutturals, his real lower tone. It always reminded me of a beast, like just gnarling and gnashing, and that definitely comes out on this. Um, Blackest Magic in practice is definitely killer. I definitely agree with that. But yeah, so I was gonna say, what? No Sleep Token? That's not our gateway.
Yeah, but if you did have somebody who loves Sleep Token, introduce them to maybe Tool to get them away from Sleep Token, and maybe introduce them to the Death of Love and maybe Nymphetamine. Another band that has really good female vocals every now and then is Amorphous. And for me, Amorphous's last 4 albums I love them.
I'm starting to get a bit more into them now, and really kind of giving it a shot. And that's one of the things that Cradle of Filth has done for me. It's kind of gotten me used to hearing how that can be together in an extreme situation. Arcane says, "What even is Sleep Token?" Metal for babies. I don't know. They're not even metal. Let's just be real. He says, hey, can't forget the DJs there, Beast."
Oh, I know.
Oh, man. But before we get into talking a little bit more about some of these other albums, let's go ahead and hear a sample, because there still might be somebody out there in the Morgrat universe that hasn't heard anything by them. That's why I like to do this, because you never know. Some people are like, "Oh, who's this? I've never really heard of this." So let's check that out right now. And the brilliance of So it's like right in that moment that you hear Danny switch from one voice to the next voice to the next voice, and then bring that beast of that scream that he does. Just, oh my goodness.
Yeah, to me, when I do vocals and I want people to understand what I'm saying, and I normally do, that is much more traumatic to me, to my vocal folds. And so he's amazing at it. If I do it like he does, the way he can kind of throw it, they're so flexible and probably so hydrated that, and he's worked it out for so long that he can handle that.
Oh, most definitely. I'm not exactly sure what small means. Anybody want to clue me in? I'm sure it's something.
And another point I want to make about Danny Filth is, a lot of really good bands have really charismatic leaders. He's super charismatic. Great interviews. If go on YouTube, he's got loads of really, really good interviews.
Totally does.
Boy, I sure wish Reaper could get him on and do an interview sometime.
Well, just so you know, I am working on that. I'm just now starting to see that he's done a couple of interviews, but it's mostly been about the current tour that they've been doing. And now everyone's talking about well, we'll talk about this at the end, because I'm kind of not cool with it, but that's okay. But anyways, so apparently what SOL stands for is he's small and swole. Thank you for clarifying. And that's another thing. Some of the greatest singers of all time. A lot of these metal bands are not very tall guys.
No, he's really small.
He is very tiny. Glenn Danzig is very tiny.
Yeah, he's pretty small.
Yeah, he's like 5'5". Has to wear, you know, 4 to 6 inch heels just to make him look better on stage. But nobody pulls it off, you know, like some of these guys do.
Now, I will tell you, there's one thing that Danny does, and he does it maybe not every song, but about every other song live, is he does this thing where he stands in the back and he just hops up and down.
Yep.
When he's ready to deliver. And I don't like when he does that. That's just a little, it's not dark. It doesn't go with everything else as well.
I think honestly, it's like the music is just like vibing with him so much that he's so excited to deliver that next punch. And I could see how that's a bit of a turnoff. But then again, you know, it's not like they're your stereotypical, you know, black metal band that doesn't really do movements much. So I would say it's okay for them, but I would not want to see that in yeah, Marduk or it's in my head and I can't get it out. The band that starts with W. You know what I'm talking about?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing a little bit.
Okay. I was
there. That's better.
There we go. I was trying to think of the band that starts with W, the black metal band. They're newer.
Not Winterfileth.
No.
Watain.
Watain. Thank you.
I mean, they're pretty old. They're pretty old, but
oh shit! All my bad.
like I think 98 or 99. Not as old as Cradle. Not as old as Cradle.
I didn't think they went back even that far. That's interesting. But I wouldn't expect bands like that to do any of the moves that, you know, Danny does. He's just, I don't know, he's kind of like the happy little vampire on stage. But yeah, I really do wonder though what caused the female vocalist the longest to say I'm kind of done with it.
I don't know. Maybe she wanted to go in a different direction and they wouldn't listen to her ideas or something like that. Maybe she wanted to be more like these lead ladies that are with these bands that I can't even think of right now because I just don't like them so much. They're all right.
Right.
They're better than Evanescence.
Well, that's not much of a stretch. There's, in my opinion. But yeah, it was just, it really shocked the fans that she would walk away from it. And I think it's because her, out of most of the singers that they have had come through that, he was the most prolific, probably the most talented, I would say. But I think the new gal is doing pretty well, to be honest.
Yeah, I liked the album that came out. I think it was 2021 or 2022. That one is called Existence is Futile. It's the one where the artist took, that's the second album. There we are. Existence is Futile. I love, this is my favorite album because I can look at it and look at it and look at it. And it's so interesting. And it reminds me of Hieronymus Bosch, who was one of my favorite old time painters. And man, was he doing some weird shit hundreds of years ago.
If this doesn't paint a picture that could completely scare the shit out of you. I mean, literally, this thing, demon, whatever you want to call it, really kind of reminds me of like old Gods of Chaos, but like hell setting, just sitting there eating humans, crapping them out. I mean, that's insane. And I never got a chance to listen to this one. So it is definitely on my radar. I'm definitely going to listen to it for sure.
Yeah, I really like it. I would say for his newer albums, like for the last probably 12 or 15 years, his voice is a lot thinner when he does the black metal parts.
Right.
Like it really is thin, and I wish he would give it a little bit more of the mids and lower mids in there. I wonder what Arcane thinks of that.
Yeah, I mean, we're always interested in your viewpoints as well, because some of y'all are definitely, musicians. I don't know, man. 30 years, and these guys tour relentlessly.
Yeah, they do.
And I think that really does take a toll. But at the same token, I think the reason he's been able to carry it this long is because they do tour so much. It's constantly strengthening, like you said, those vocal folds and being able to at least deliver the best you can. Because, dude, even Bruce Dickinson at this point, I mean, he still sings really, really well. It's not like 10, 15 years ago,
Yeah.
Arcane says, honestly, yeah, I agree. I wish he would throw in more of the lows in there. And we kind of got a glimpse of him live, singing live. And that's why I went with the live video. So you could how he does it live. It's one thing when you're in the studio. Studio can make it sound phenomenal, no matter what. I mean, come on, it's the Ozzy album in the 2000s, But as far as live, it's like that's when you really get to see what they can do, how they deliver it, and for the most part, he does it really well. But you don't have that double track going on, and one thing that I absolutely praise him for is he does not use the backing track when he switches to a high voice. You don't hear that low voice with it. That's why he's like doing this what do you call it, running a marathon up and down the scales. So that's really cool. But if we could do some more of those lows, that'd be badass.
Oh, let's see. Which other one do we need to talk about? Thornography. I think Thornography came out around 2002.
Oh, okay.
That's a pretty good one. Some of the songs you might look for are Dirge Inferno and Tonight in Flames. But pretty good album, and I like the guitar tone on this album as well. It's pretty grinding, and it has good mids and good lows in it. It's not too thin. It's pretty heavy.
So a little more in your face, basically. Yeah. Now, one thing I've noticed throughout some of the later albums is the drums, the way they're recorded, they get a little muddy. And I'm always curious if that's because there's just too many layers. Do you think that affects it a lot? Because sometimes you'll hear the snare clear. Sometimes it just kind of sounds more like a wash, like a crack. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've noticed that as well. But still, yeah, you can hear most everything really well. It's not terrible.
Like the song from the Cradle to Enslave. I know that's going back a bit away, but the thing I noticed there after Nicholas had left, they got that new drummer in, and then when it came time for the blast beat section, it just was so muddy that you couldn't hear those defined hits. And I was like, man, that sucks. I'm used to hearing, like just raw fucking power. And then, the more the keys got into it, it seemed like it was just starting to cover it a little bit. But that makes sense.
How much, Reaper, would you say drummers, when they go in the recording studio, how much power do they have when they're like tuning or trying to capture a certain sound? How much freedom and how much authority do they get to employ for the recording? Or do you think that some of these, if they've got a big producer, the big producer says, no, 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 I'm boss?
I guarantee you, if you have a producer, I mean, honestly, a good producer is going to want them to be happy. Like, if I get a producer that tells me, oh, I think it's better this way, and I'm listening to it and going, no, that's just not me. It's not earthy enough. There's not enough crack. Um, a lot of extreme metal drummers today are all about hearing every note, feeling every hit, so that that's why they tighten the snare so much. They tighten the snare head so much, so that you're getting every bit of that instead of a wash kind of sound. Because in those early days of the blast beat, it was not defined, and that was always kind of a gripe, I think, in the drum community. Like, no, we want to hear those individual notes. Are they cheating? Are they muscling it? What are they doing? So I would say, if it's definitely a bigger producer, the producer's going to be like, no, you want it to sound like this because I did so and so's record and it sold this much. That's kind of how that shit works. But if you get especially a producer that's also a musician, they're going to be like, no, I want you to be happy. I want you to be comfortable and get it the way you want it. And they'll go to bat for you, man. They'll sit there, play it back as many times as you want, fix it, tweak it, whatever. A good producer will catch if things don't sound like it should. So,
All right.
on that. Arcane says courting Baphomet is absolutely one of the top 5 favorite songs of all time.
Yeah, I had written that down last night and in my phone because I was on the plane. We were in the plane quite a bit before we took off, and so I was going through albums. That's one of the ones I had written down.
Yep, it's also pretty high on my list too because I love the ferocity of it. It's like a serenade to you know serenading Baphomet in such a cool way. There's a lot of songs, guys, that I'll use the term beautiful, but beautifully brutal, because you're getting like the best of both worlds. Because with Cradle of Filth and the way they write, especially, I always go back to Cruelty of the Beast on this, because when Danny goes for that long scream, that one, the band goes into the blast beat, and it literally sounds like the pit of hell opened up. For like, what? It's like, wow, this is just badassery. And I honestly can say I don't think there's been another band that sounds quite like them.
There's one other point I want to bring, and it's kind of the balancing act that's a big challenge that they are doing. They really do bring in so many theatric optics and musical tastes in here that it really does feel like theater a lot of times.
It does.
And sometimes, in my opinion, the metal suffers from that. It sounds a little bit more like it's made for a soundtrack, or there's some sort of a big stage show that they're acting out with these songs, or that they could act out with these songs. And that's just kind of a taste thing. And I think that's why I like the first 2 albums. Those are probably my 2 favorite. Cruelty and the Beast is number 3, and it's any of those they're all amazing. I would say I'd probably go with Godspeed, the Devil's Thunder as my number 4. And probably Midian is my number 5, I would say.
For me, I would have to say Cruelty is my top, just because, I mean, I'm captivated by the story. I do enjoy a good concept album, and it's eerie, and it's horror delight. It appeases both my extreme metal and my horror sensibilities, because I feel like I'm getting them both, and I feel like I'm on that journey, which is why I always loved King Diamond so much. And so from there, I would definitely say Dusk and Her Embrace, and Vampire as my all-time faves.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right. Don't know if I've written anything else down. I wrote all kinds of songs for almost every album. When you get into like the middle 2010s,
yes,
they go through a lot of kind of hardcore influence, kind of a punk, kind of power chord, fast strumming in there. And I wasn't too as big a fan of that. Hammer of the Witches is a pretty good album, but it does have that effect in there. But there's nothing on that album, and sometimes people will put that in their top 5 of their discography.
wow.
It's not in mine though.
No, that is when you can definitely tell that they're trying to. You can tell that they're commercialized. Once they hit that plateau, that they are a household name, and not underground at all anymore. Uh, they did the whole Hot Topic, made their oh my goodness, Cradle of Filth line. Things got a little bit more mainstream with them on some of those records, and that's why I don't really can't say I dig them that much. Once it's gone mainstream, you can tell it feels different, and like, come on, man, you can create so much better shit than this. I chalk it up to age, whatever, but still, I think it's being lazy.
All right. Well, I think that's all I've got. Outside of the Death of Love that's on Godspeed and the Devil's Thunder, Shat Out of Hell. I like that song quite a bit.
Yeah, it's good.
And the 13th Caesar has a good chorus for it. And he gets kind of low and almost spoken word with it.
Hell yeah. I love the multiple dimensions. Definitely.
Yeah. And that album is also a concept album. I forget the guy who it was about, but I think it was in France.
Mm-hmm.
It's a French guy. I forgot who it's about.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Another concept. Yeah, when I saw that title, I was dying laughing. I was like, that's perfect. I love it. It worked. But my advice to anybody, that may have caught on to them, because again, when you have a 30-year career, people discover bands like this later in their career and think they've always sounded that way.
Mm-hmm.
Go back and check those early records out, because chances are you're going to find a few, at least a few songs, maybe a full album that you're like, this was like really, really groundbreaking. Like, it's more brutal, and you can definitely like multiple eras of the band. Sometimes people don't ever go; they just catch on to that one record and move forward. Because you got to remember, up till about mid, I believe, that people, not everyone knew who they were. But once that album hit so well, started grabbing on the
To me, it's a little bit like Metallica's first 3 albums, Kill 'Em All. Kill 'Em All and The Principle of Evil are very different from the third album, which was Cruelty and the Beast and Master of Puppets, respectively, for Metallica. amazing fucking albums. And to me, it kind of goes in that way. Like, I love Ride the Lightning, but I really like Dusk in Her Embrace as well. It has more of the black metal influence. Really good. They're growing, but they don't shat the bed like Metallica does. Like, they stay heavy throughout. There's no shit albums. There's some albums that are a little bit more meh, but nothing is shit. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Let's see here. Cody says, I'm going back with Paul Bearer, the newest album I've listened to probably 6 times now. That's awesome. Fantastic to hear. Mousebong says, yes, me too. I actually got the vinyl in the mail. And it is a nice looking record online. So excellent.
Great record. It's in my top 10 so far for sure when we do our end of the year. So everybody out there, just as a reminder, keep up your own top 10 so you can share that when we have that big show probably in December.
Hell yeah. Absolutely. And because
last year we did a mid-year kind of the best of what's been out. So maybe we'll do that sometime in June.
Yeah, actually, I think that would be really cool to do. I was going to say, don't forget, Cradle does have a new record coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I believe by the summertime. And the only negative thing I'm going to say about them is they have recorded a track with who is a pop singer. It's for some kind of fundraising thing. Like, I don't know what cause it is, but it's a you know a fundraising thing for a charity. So okay, but I don't want to hear it. I won't listen to it. So if some of you, when it does drop, it's not going to be on an album, just a single being released by itself. Check it out. That's fine. You let me know if it sucks, what you think of it. But I'm telling you, I ain't gonna listen to no pop singer with somebody like myself. I'm gonna do it. I understand why. I mean, come on, money. It's got to be, you know. But yeah, I think doing a halfway point of the best of this year is definitely around the corner, and obviously this year will be the big one. Thank you guys for tuning in on this Thursday. Fuck of a week, and hopefully you've had fun listening to us rap about this band. Even though comment section, like a refresher for you, go back, revisit some of those classic records. Sometimes putting a fresh ears on them, you end up finding that maybe you did a bit more than you did when you first heard it. You just never know. So thanks for choosing us for your synopsis of the great Filth. And, just back on Monday night, we're going to be back again with just an awesome show. We'll let you know what we're going to be doing because it'll officially be the month of June. I can definitely tell that my brother here needs some sleep, a little bit more rest, and especially knowing get the bastard that stole his phone. So always keep one foot on the ground and one in the fire, but always, always, always remember, no matter how bad it gets, you must always stay.